This is Research Like a Pro, Episode 1, Introduction. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Wow, it's the first episode of Research Like a Pro. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Diana.
And we are the hosts of this podcast. So today we're going to start talking about the Research Like a Pro process. But before we jump into that, we're going to tell you about how we came up with it and where we started our genealogy journey. So when I was 16, that's when Mom and I started doing our genealogy together.
Yeah, it was really fun because I had just gotten all of my dad's research in a suitcase. He had started researching our family probably 20 or 30 years ago, and he was just getting too old to do it anymore. And I had decided I wanted to take it up. So he met me at the Salt Lake airport, handed me everything in a suitcase. And of course, it was just a bunch of papers. There was nothing organized in file folders. I didn't have a nice, neat program to work with everything in yet. And so I just started taking it paper by paper and trying to discover our family. So Nicole, luckily, was interested also. And that summer, I put her in charge of some research, and she started looking up censuses, and she got hooked. And so together we've been doing genealogy and family history research ever since.
It's been a while, but not too long, I guess. I just love the fun of discovering about my ancestors, and the hunt is really exciting. And I just really want to learn how to break down all my brick walls myself. That's why, I was so excited when my mother, Diana, came out with this Research Like a Pro process on her blog. So we should backpedal a little bit to after we started researching our own genealogy. A few years later, I started teaching a class at our church about family history, and then Diana started teaching at the same time too. So that was exciting to start teaching at the same time.
Yeah, it was really fun. Nicole and I are both teachers. And so I taught elementary school, she taught middle school, and we just have that teacher gene where we want to explain to people how to do things. And as I was teaching genealogy classes, I would just get so frustrated because it didn't seem like anything I was teaching was really sinking in. People just didn't know what to do to get started. And so Nicole gave me the idea to pursue accreditation. And at first I was really not sure if that was something I wanted to do, but I had just started doing some client work for my neighbor, and I discovered I really loved looking for other people's family as much as I loved researching my own family. And so I decided that I would see if I could become an accredited genealogist and have this become a profession. So I went through 2 years of the hard work of becoming accredited, which taught me so much. And of course, because I have the teacher brain, I just started thinking, all these different steps that would be so perfect for people to learn how to research just like I had. They didn't necessarily need to become professionals or even certified or accredited, but just learn simple things that would help them actually make progress. And luckily, we had started writing the Family Locket blog. And so I had an outlet for all of my ideas. And I just came up with this idea one summer that it would be really fun to write a series of blog posts called Research Like a Pro. And it made me just kind of focus in all of the thoughts that had been going through my brain about the process. And so I just organized it in a way that made sense to me and that worked for me, and wrote a blog post about each of the steps. So, other people might do these in a little bit different order, but the way that really works for me and the way that I organize the process and the way I organize the book, just really simple: create an objective, analyze sources, research the locality that you're working in, do some research planning, learn how to do source citations, keep a research log, and then write up your research. The really important last step that no one really wants to do, but makes all the difference. So after I had written all these blog posts, I just really wanted to test my idea. And I just kept thinking it would be so fun to do a study group and to see if this process would work with a group of people that were genealogists. So I just put it out there on the website and see if people would like to join me in doing a study group. And I had 11 people join up and we got started, and it was really fun because by the end of it, without exception, every single one of them had so much success going through the process. And Nicole was one of the takers with that first study group. So Nicole, what was your experience with going through the process for the first time?
Well, I think I bit off more than I could chew that first study group. I wanted to do a big project, so I thought I'm going to do 3 brothers and their Civil War service. So I learned the lesson that I needed a narrow objective because it ended up being a little bit overwhelming to try to make an analysis and a timeline for all 3 brothers and their families, and then research the locality for all the different places the 3 brothers lived. So yeah, I really learned a lot about a manageable project size and focusing in on a narrow research question. It was really helpful for me. And I've taken the study group 3 times now, and each time I feel like my skills have advanced quite a bit. So back in, when we first started the Family Locket blog, I thought a lot about the different ways to become a certified or an accredited genealogist. I looked at the Board for Certification of Genealogists and ICAPGen, the International Commission for the Accreditation of, what is the last part?
Professional genealogist.
Yeah, it's really long. So I looked into both of those and I just thought, wow, there's so much that I have to learn. And with 3 little kids at home, I wonder if I could ever do this. And so when I mentioned it to you, you were like, oh, yeah, maybe I could do that. All my kids are grown. So I'm glad you did, because now I'm really reaping the benefits from all of your study. You're teaching me everything you know. It's great.
Well, it's really interesting because we were really good researchers. We knew what we were doing and we had taken a lot of classes. We'd really honed our skills pretty well, I felt. But there's just something about going through the whole process, the research process from start to finish. And a professional genealogist can't just, do a little bit of research and then call it good. You've really got to have a polished product to give to a client. And it's that whole process of getting from the beginning to the end that makes the difference between what you really accomplish in your research. And I just didn't know that before I did accreditation. That just didn't occur to me, how to take that process from beginning to end.
Yeah, I love the idea that you can have a finite project size, that you start with the research objective, you make a plan, and then you log what you find or don't find, and then you write up the results. And you don't have to feel like you're never done because you finished your finite project, and then you can create another project the next time you research that question if you didn't find the answer to it. And it was so nice to think, oh, I'm not just doing a project forever and ever and ever. The brick walls, you feel like you never make progress if you don't find something. So it was really liberating to realize I don't have to find the answer. I can just do a set project, write the results, whether, here's some new evidence that I found. I can't prove this conclusion, but I did make some progress because I checked these record groups and it wasn't there. So it's really nice to learn what to do when you have those problems, those brick walls, and how to kind of make a project and have an end where you can restart again later.
And I think that's so important because most of us don't have an unlimited time to do our genealogy. Some of the people in the study group worked full time, and so they could only do their homework or their assignments for 30 to 40 minutes a day. And they still made really good progress because they had a plan. They had a whole process. So it's really fun because in the book, there's one of the forewords is one of my friends, and she felt like she was a pretty beginning genealogist, but she made so much progress, and the whole process gave her so much confidence that she's just now, feeling really confident in her abilities and able to tackle bigger and harder projects. So I think it's really fun because the process can work for a professional genealogist. I use it every single week in my professional client work, but it also can work for someone who's really just kind of getting started. Maybe someone who's just working on online trees. Maybe, someone who's just been attaching hints on Family Search or on their ancestry tree and just want to dig a little deeper and figure out something to do next to become better. And so as you work through the process each time, like Nicole, like you were saying, each time you feel like you've gotten better, I think that's for all of us. I think we all should be striving to get better with each research project that we do.
Yeah, I think that's why I really have loved the process so much, because I had reached the point in my research and searching for records that I had gotten really good at searching. But I hadn't ever really learned how to research. I hadn't ever made a plan and then followed the plan and made a log. I would just kind of think of something and then go search for it. And like everybody says, you follow that bright, shiny object, and then you get distracted and you forget where you've been. And then the next time you come back to your research, you feel like, what did I do? And what did I find? So yeah, I'm learning that I hadn't really learned how to research. I had just become good at searching. So now I'm really learning the process for researching and writing. And writing is so fun to me. I know a lot of people hate it, but that's really one of my favorite parts, is writing up a report at the end and just telling what I found and making connections. I feel like I learn so much when I write it all down.
I do too. And in fact, I've started, as I'm doing my research projects now, I've started just writing as I go. So as soon as I have my research plan intact and I start looking at sources, I will look at a source and then I will start writing about it, because honestly, it's in writing about it that I really make the connections. And so sometimes I just am figuring out this problem as I'm going and writing about it, and it all is coming together so much better than if I had just gone looking for source after source after source. So taking a little bit more time with each source to really analyze it and figure out fully what that source holds, it really makes all the difference. And that's another fun part of this process, is going back over and looking at those old records, revisiting things that we maybe found years ago, because the more knowledge you have, the more you're going to read into that source, the more you're going to understand it. So, that's one of my favorite chapters in the book, or one of my favorite parts of the process, is creating that timeline and analyzing your sources and just seeing what you've got. Sometimes it just unfolds for you when you put it in a timeline, all of your research. And it has happened in the past that I have put that in, and all of a sudden the answer is just staring me in the face. I just hadn't organized everything. And when I finally did, there it was so clearly what had been, what I needed to start working on with the family. So
yeah, I totally agree. I love timelines, and it's been so fun to make timelines and see what I have. I think I get in this mode of gather, and I'm just constantly trying to search for more things that are going to give me the answer. But for some of my brick walls that are in the southern United States, a lot of the evidence that I gather is indirect evidence. So I have to stop gathering at some point and start putting it into a timeline and analyzing it and finding out what I have and how it works together to build a hypothesis. So the timeline and analysis has been really effective for me for helping. In fact, when I did this last project about our Keaton family from South Carolina, doing the timeline analysis really helped me realize that William Keaton died in 1830. And I was trying to prove that he was Lucinda's father, And when I realized that he died and that he was a property owner, because that was one of the other pieces of evidence that I had gathered, was that he was a property owner, I realized there had to be some kind of estate division at his death. And I don't know why I hadn't figured that out before. So we'll have to talk about the Keaton family more in a later episode, since it's one of the case studies up on our website. But it was exciting to follow these steps. And I had been working on this, family for a couple of years. But by analyzing all of the evidence that I had already found and actually putting it in a timeline and then looking to see what records existed for that county, I realized exactly what I needed to search in. So it was a wonderful, wonderful day.
Well, And I have to admit that following your research was really fun for me because I love that you're working on one of my brick walls as well. And so that's one less that I have to do because you're working on it.
One of the great things of being a mother-daughter team, right, Mom?
That is right. I do love it. Well, the other fun thing about the Research Like a Pro process is that not only does it help you solve your big brick walls, but it can just help just get through a little small project. The latest study group, I try to do a project with each study group because honestly, it's the only way I get my own family history research done because I have so many other client projects to do. But this latest one was really simple. It was just finding the identity of this woman that I thought might be a sister to my Cynthia Dillard, who's my big brick wall, finding her dad. And I just had this one document, a will, and I sent my research plan, and it was amazing. Within an hour of research, I had totally solved the problem that I just kind of had mulling around in the back of my brain, but I'd never really approached the problem. So just a small project, and I solved it. It was great, and I'm excited to write up the research proving that. So works for large and small projects.
Yeah, I always think to myself, if I only had 3 hours to sit down and do a project and just do it all at once, I wonder how quickly I could do each step. And I think if you just are going for simple, you could quickly create an objective, analyze what you already know, and do a little research into what records are available in the locality, make a little plan, and then research real quick. I mean, you could really do this in 2 or 3 hours if you're keeping it simple. And then, when you want to do a big project on a big brick wall, you might spend 3 hours analyzing your sources and 5 hours doing your locality research and studying the location and the extant records and making a plan. So it really is fun to think about the possibilities for adjusting it to whatever size research project you have and how much time you want to spend, but to always feel like you are productive with whatever time you did spend because you're not just searching around. You're actually doing a plan.
Exactly. I think that that's one of the challenges in genealogy is that sometimes we feel like it's never going to be done. And it really is never going to be done. But we can feel like we've really made a lot of progress when we actually have a process and when we actually get something on paper, something that we can share. Because, what good is our research if we just do it and it's in our own heads? And if it's just a bunch of chicken scratches on paper, we've got to get it into a form that we can share and that people will believe because it's credible research, because we've cited our sources, because we've written, a proof summary or something somewhere, we've written something. And that makes all the difference.
Yes, you mentioned your friend who wrote a foreword for the book because we have 3 forewords, one by me, one by your friend Nancy, and then one by Sherry. And while you were talking just now about how, our family history work may never seem like it's done, it reminded me of something that she said. So I'll just read a paragraph from her foreword. She said, "Seeing the big picture was eye-opening and provided the most overall benefit for me. It was liberating to be able to define a discrete and manageable objective, see it through to its conclusion, and then begin the process again. Although the work of family history is never done, we can finish a specific project, set it aside, and select another focused objective. This may be an outgrowth of that just completed project, or we can just apply these tools to a totally different family line." So I think that was kind of what she brought out of it too, is that you can finish a project, although you probably won't ever feel like you're done researching your family. So for people who are busy, like she mentioned in her foreword, she's got a lot of other duties and she works, but she still wants to make progress in her genealogy because it's important to her. So these productivity tools and this method was really helpful. And that's exactly how I feel too, is with kids at home and trying to take care of everything that I have to do. I want to feel like I'm making progress in my research, not just spinning my wheels.
Exactly. Well, and for anyone that's interested in doing client work or being a professional genealogist, I often wondered what a professional did. How was their work different than my work? And this is what I've realized the difference is. that a professional genealogist does all of these steps and does a finished product. And there's no reason why any genealogist can't do that. We can all do that.
Yeah, I always wondered what is the secret that they like, what do they do that's different than what I'm doing? And I would think maybe if I just hire a researcher, then they can solve this brick wall for me right away. And maybe what I need to do is fly out there to that state and go to the courthouse. And sometimes I think we do need to do that. But so far, a lot of the records that I've needed have been at the Family History Library. And so you can just go look them up for me since I'm in Arizona and you're in Utah, which is great. Thank you. But yeah, I always wondered what is it that makes their research so much more advanced, and how do they make more discoveries, and how can we be like them? So I'm happy that you kind of figured it out for us.
Well, I'm happy I figured it out too, because that's what I do every day now. And it's really fun because I open up my computer and I'm starting on a new project and I just go through all my steps. And it's just so slick, and it's really, really helped me as a professional in my client work to have the steps really spelled out. So I know exactly what to do when I get a new project. And every client project is different. You know, each of us has a different area of research. Every research area, time frame, they're all different, but the process is the same. It doesn't matter whether you're researching in England or Mexico or Florida, you know, or the Western United States. It's just the process that remains the same. So,
Yes, and one thing I love about genealogy is that this field, you are always learning something new and developing, because you can't just learn everything about researching in one place. There's always more to learn about a new place. And the locality research is surprisingly one of my favorite steps, because you'd think it would be arduous to take a break from researching that family line and go learn about the town and the county and what records are available and the history and what was going on. But it is fun and exciting. And maybe that's just the history nerd in me, because I mean, I studied history in college and I loved it. But it's eye-opening how learning about the location that your ancestors lived can help so much. And in general, this genealogy field is all about development and learning to become a better researcher, and gaining that knowledge about external facts that aren't specifically about our ancestor, but are about their time period and their location and their geography. All of that comes together to help the genealogist advance their skills. So it is a wonderful field to be in.
well, and especially if you love learning. You know, I'm the same way. I love learning. And so discovering the little bit of history. So, for instance, I just read the book about the Trail of Tears, the Cherokee Nation. And that was so fascinating to me because all of our Southern ancestors received their land basically once the Cherokees had ceded the land. And so it was just so fascinating to me to understand how those land records worked. And so every single bit of history that we can learn about the location for where our ancestors were living, it will just increase our knowledge and it will help in our research. So that's why I agree with you. The locality research section of the process is something really not to be skipped. It's not to be glossed over, because that is really going to help you make progress. There are going to be records you had no idea existed in your county or your state or your country, and you're going to find people in those records. So, you know, we've got to dig a little bit deeper than just the surface records that are always readily available and easy to find.
Right. And I think especially with accreditation, where you have to choose a specific region to specialize in, it seems like that's another thing that's really separating, you know, the amateurs from the professionals, is that they really know about how to research in a specific location, or maybe they're an expert in England, or for you, Gulf South United States. But learning about that locality and all of the records that are available and how to research there kind of makes you a little bit more of a professional in those states.
It really does, because when you look at a record, immediately you start thinking about, well, I wonder if there's this kind of a record, or, you know, what's next. For instance, if I look at a will, I know that there's going to be a lot more probate going along with that will. There's going to be administration records. There's going to be a final settlement, and in the South, I realize that there's just the probate records can really be the key because there are not very many vital records. There's not a lot of, town records. And so in the South, we have to rely on land records and probate records and court records. But someone who's researching in, say, Massachusetts, they're going to really become an expert in the town records because those were kept, very, very early on. So it is really kind of fun with accreditation that you focus so much on your region and become such an expert in that region. But, any genealogist can become an expert in where their family came from. So, become an expert in whatever location you're researching. And I love what you said about how we can never stop learning. There's always more to learn. There's always more discoveries to be made, which is why we love what we do.
And that's why we started this podcast, because we love reading books and I love listening to books, but there's not a lot of things to listen to for honing your genealogy methodology skills. So we thought we'd share some of the ideas that we've had, the Research Like a Pro method. And hopefully throughout the episodes, we can discuss different research processes and methodologies and projects that we've done that can help you guys. So we're excited to record these episodes and hope that you will subscribe and keep listening. Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, familylocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.